Have you ever felt like just being in a crowded room literally drains the life out of you? You know, society probably labeled you as too sensitive, too intense, or maybe just severely introverted. But what if I told you that your lifelong social exhaustion is actually not a fundamental flaw? Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to completely shatter the way you view your own mind today. Because the truth is, your nervous system is likely operating at an advanced level of intelligence that most people, well, they just can't comprehend.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're sitting at a crowded dinner table, surrounded by all this loud laughter and overlapping conversations, and then suddenly it's like all that ambient noise just fades into this low, distorted hum, and you are hit with this profound, isolated exhaustion. You've probably diagnosed yourself as socially anxious, right? Thinking your social battery is just fundamentally broken. Okay, let's dive into this, because we really need to shift this paradigm right now.
So is your social battery broken? The answer is a resounding no. You have been misdiagnosed. Your whole life, society, your family, maybe even your therapist have likely been labeling you completely incorrectly. They tell you to build walls, to stop overthinking, try to turn the volume down on the world. They've convinced you that you're just severely introverted. But the legendary psychologist Carl Jung, he'd tell you that society has gotten this completely, totally wrong.
Which brings us to Section 1, the misdiagnosis of introversion, society's labels versus your reality.
See, when you're constantly hit with all these inaccurate labels, your natural reaction is to just try and numb yourself. You want to build those walls up high and turn down the volume of the world. But that doesn't really work, does it? Because the exhaustion you feel, it's not a malfunction. You aren't just picking up on obvious emotional cues. You are carrying the heavy, heavy toll of decoding hidden human behaviors. You're constantly processing these unconscious signals. I'm talking about noticing the slight tension in someone's jaw. You register that tiny fraction of a second delay before someone answers a question. You literally feel the unspoken agreement in a group to never acknowledge the elephant in the room.
And we finally have a name for this whole phenomenon. This is Carl Jung's concept of differentiated perception. Your nervous system is quite literally calibrated to decode frequencies of human behavior that the vast majority of the population broadcasts, but simply cannot read. This is the true, authoritative psychological term for what you've been experiencing. And, without the proper psychological architecture to manage it, this extraordinary capability feels exactly like a curse.
So let me ask you to just pause for a second and look at your own life. Have you ever walked into a social event or maybe a corporate meeting feeling totally fine, only to leave an hour later with this crushing, unexplainable exhaustion that sleep just cannot fix? Seriously, let me know in the comments if this resonates with you. Because if you're constantly drained by the mere presence of other people, we need to acknowledge the immense, invisible psychological weight you're carrying around every single day.
All right, let's move into Section 2, the rule of managed blindness, why human social systems isolate you. To really understand why your perception exhausts you so much, we have to take a neutral look at how human social systems actually function out there in the real world. Jung observed that healthy social groups, whether we're talking about your family or your workplace, they actually function through shared agreements about what will not be acknowledged. The group relies on this managed blindness to smooth things over and maintain cooperation. But you have differentiated perception. You can't just automatically participate in that blindness. You walk in and notice the exact thing everyone else silently agreed to ignore. So the crucial point is, when you refuse to play that game of managed blindness, it creates some fierce, undeniable friction.
And this friction leads directly to a phenomenon called shadow projection. Because your mere presence basically exposes the lie the group is maintaining, people get deeply uncomfortable. So through shadow projection, the group looks for an external explanation for their unease and, well, they frequently land on you. You get labeled as the difficult one, the dramatic one, the one who's always stirring things up. But in reality, actually, you just walked into a room where things were already stirred up, and everyone else had just agreed to pretend the water was perfectly still.
Consider this incredibly powerful reality for a moment. When people see something in a mirror that they do not want to see, they do not always examine themselves. Sometimes they throw something at the mirror. You are that mirror. And because of this dynamic, you experience chronic isolation. You learn to kind of just perform belonging without actually experiencing it, which leaves you feeling like a visitor from a country no one else has ever even been to.
I mean, think about the absolute irony of the modern wellness industry for a second. They love to sell you expensive bath bombs and assure you that you're just an empath. But Jung estimated that while people who are emotionally sensitive make up roughly 20% of the population, true introverted intuitives, they make up only about 1%. A sensitive person feels deeply, sure, but a differentially perceptive person sees deeply. And let's be brutally honest here. Society can tolerate someone who feels deeply, but is absolutely terrified of someone who sees clearly.
So, what do we do about this?
That brings us to Section 3, Becoming the Conscious Witness, Jung's path from unconscious absorber to grounded observer.
Here's the deal. If you don't develop a conscious relationship with your perception, it is going to completely overwhelm you. The immediate danger here is identity erosion. Without building a conscious framework, you're just acting as a psychological sponge. You end up absorbing other people's emotional and psychological contents until the boundary between yourself and others completely disappears. You literally stop knowing where you end and where the rest of the room begins. Yikes, right? To fix this, Jung laid out a really clear, logical flow. Step 1 is recognition and separation. Because you've spent your entire life basically blending into the emotional environment, you absolutely must practice consistent, genuine solitude. When you sit in true quiet, all that absorbed material finally settles, and your own voice returns. You've got to constantly ask yourself, wait, where did this feeling come from? Is this actually mine? Then, step 2 is building psychological containers. This is the crucial ability to hold the weight of other people's psychological contents without losing yourself in them.
The end goal here is super clear. We want to move you from an unconscious absorber, someone who's just destabilized by the room, to a conscious witness. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. Kind of like a first responder arriving at a chaotic scene. They are fully present to the crisis, they totally understand the gravity of it, but they are not destroyed by it. They remain emotionally present and professionally functional because they've built an internal structure strong enough to hold the weight. You can see the manipulation, you can feel the unacknowledged grief in the room, but you always return to your own grounded center.
Let's look at how to build those containers in Section 4, the 4 perceptual architectures, naming your specific experience to master it.
Because in order to build those containers, you first have to claim your specific internal architecture. Naming your experience is the very first step to mastering it. Jung noticed that this perception generally falls into 4 distinct architectures. So, which one are you? Are you the feeling perceiver who literally absorbs emotional pain physically? Or maybe the thinking perceiver who uses advanced pattern recognition to constantly foresee outcomes? Perhaps you're the somatic perceiver, registering the psychological tension of a room deep in your bones. Or are you the pure intuitive receiving powerful, undeniable impressions without any logical source whatsoever? Seriously, tell me down in the comments, which type resonates with you the most? Claim your architecture.
If you have spent your entire life feeling like you are fundamentally untranslatable, I really want you to let this sink in. The work in front of you is not to lower that frequency to match the unconscious people around you. The work in front of you is to become equal to what you carry. I'll say it again. You are fundamentally not broken. Your perception is simply set to a frequency that most people just cannot tune into. Become equal to it. That is the true mandate of this explainer. You have a really profound choice to make moving forward. Will you continue calling your clarity a disorder, trying to numb yourself just to fit into a room that flat out refuses to see? Or will you build your psychological containers, embrace the discipline of conscious solitude, and step into the fierce, untouchable power of seeing the world exactly as it is? The choice is entirely yours.